So, good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Well, it's great to see you, and it's really good to hear from you. I don't know that we've had a Zoom call for a few months. Just by way of introduction, Lisa Jackson is a mentor to me, and she's a retired registered nurse. Is that correct?
Yep.
Right. And she was a group leader in the School of Applied Functional Medicine and took care of myself and about 15 others as we went through a year's worth of functional medicine training. And as you can see from her beautiful smile, she's a very inspirational figure. And she has written a book called Savvy Secrets, Eat, Think, and Thrive, 7 Steps to Optimal Health, which I've gone through, and it resonates so much with me. I wanted to interview her. So Lisa, welcome. And I want to ask you, how did you get to where you are today? Like early life, your origin story, like major things that led you and guided you into what you're doing today.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Actually, that's a really good sign of a good coach, is to ask about the origin, which I've done a number of these interviews and podcasts, and nobody has asked me that. So I think that's really interesting. And when I think about it, it's pretty remarkable that I'm as healthy as I am at, almost 62 years old. And my mother and I are both proof that you are never too old and you are never too sick to heal. And how amazing it is that on what the human body can endure, and that we are a lot more resilient than we've been led to believe. So I was born in Washington, D.C. as a twin, 5 pounds, jaundice, and sick. My mother had epilepsy. And so she took Dilantin through her whole pregnancy. And if you Google, some of the side effects, it's kind of fortunate that my sister and I did not have birth, mental or physical defects from that. And she was so sick, and anemic, she couldn't walk up and down the stairs. My uncle had to come and live with us to feed us the twins bottles. I had an older sister too, 5.5 years old at the time. So we weren't breastfed. We grew up, back in the 50s, like a lot of people with home cooked meals, but soon Twinkies, Cheetos, healthy snacks. In fact, our healthy snack was iceberg lettuce with sugar roll-ups.
Oh, why not?
That was a healthy snack. Yeah. And then the other significant thing, looking back at my history of kind of what led to my disease older in life, is that my well-meaning parents invested in braces. I had big buck teeth, and all in all, I had 8 teeth pulled and braces. And shortly after that, I had been a dancer and a gymnast. And shortly after that, my brace work, and I didn't put the two together until much later, decades later. But I started having a hiatal hernia, was diagnosed with scoliosis, and could barely get out of bed in high school without my mother massaging my neck and my shoulders and my back. I was in a lot of pain. Ended up in the emergency room, shortness of breath. It was cheerleading because of my scoliosis. And it wasn't later that I realized how this led to sleep apnea, narcolepsy, hypertension. It wasn't until I was 30 years old that I even went to a chiropractor, which seemed like from conventional medicine we thought was quackery, that helped me with my spine issues and getting me into yoga. So it's always a good question to ask about the formative years.
So let me ask you, with these childhood problems, and I think most kids do get sick a lot. It's sort of, welcome to planet Earth. Here's some microbes and some bacteria and some virus to get used to and see what you can do with this, and there's always a stress test involved in are we going to make it here in this environment. It's a beautiful planet we live on, but there are, dangers, and there's, the story about your mom being on medication while carrying twins. That's got to be a huge amount of stress on your mom's body. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have similar questions about, my mom came out of the Holocaust and mm-hmm. she starved, for mm-hmm. until maybe a year or two before I was born. Like, what am I made out of? Like, how did this happen? How am I as healthy as I am? So that's really a good way to look at it. But did this childhood difficulties you had, did that weigh in on your decision to become a nurse?
No, I kind of fell into that. I really wanted to be a ballerina and was asked to audition for the school of Washington School of Ballet. I have my little ballerina piece of artwork here. And was told that was no life for a woman, and that I was going to be a writer, and my father laughed at me about that. And then I said in high school I had been kind of fell into a job as being a nurse's aide, and said I want to be a nurse, and he just laughed out loud, said I was too empathetic and too emotional to be a nurse. And I think I went to nursing school just to spite him, to say, no, I could do this. I knew I could do this. I knew that nursing school would be easy. It really was not having worked in the hospital environment. But early on in nursing, I really witnessed the revolving door syndrome, that we were not really doing healing. We were patching people up, treating symptoms. And there was, this was back in the 80s before managed care. People would come in, we'd have patients in the med-surg ward with diabetes or congestive obstructive pulmonary disease, these chronic diseases, where we would put them on a strict 1800 ADA diet, and they would lose 100 pounds, and families would be sneaking in food, and they'd discharge after like 3 months and then come back again several months later, this yo-yo and not really getting to the root cause. So right, yeah, that's really interesting, because the way Western medicine has progressed, there's so much progress in the in infectious diseases and people in accidents and broken bones and patching people back together, as you said. But in the chronic disease, it seems like possibly because of the pharmaceutical industry, maintaining a disease or maintaining some sort of lower grade lifestyle, taking medication and just trying to tame the disease without actually looking at the root cause, without actually getting to the fundamentals of how can we actually cure this? How can we reverse this disease? That's almost, it's almost like a heresy to say you can cure a disease, right? Well, even the American Diabetes Association, their website, I don't know if it still says this, it says this is a
incurable disease.
Incurable disease, that we have to life with cancer, life with diabetes. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm really saddened that, who knew? I didn't know that epilepsy is a autoimmune disease. And you and I have witnessed, having been working for over 40 years, we've witnessed the epidemic rise in autoimmune diseases. And that what we learned at the School of Applied Functional Medicine, once you have one autoimmune disease, you're more likely to have another within 5 years. And my mother has had, not just epilepsy, but Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disease to the thyroid, had her thyroid irradiated, macular degeneration, another autoimmune disease, multiple ones. And it wasn't until COVID, when she came to live with my sister and I, for 4 months. She was so over medicated at 88 years old that we were able to get her off of 4 of her medications and soon to be 5. She lost like 65 pounds just being with family and loved ones and changing the diet and exercise. How dramatic. She'll be 89 in June. And I'm so sad that just using basic fundamental functional medicine practices, that we can stop progression of disease, but even reverse the symptoms. It doesn't matter how old you are, and that we're not bound to be taking a pill for every ill. Oh, diabetes, she's got, she was on metformin, she was on 4 cardiac meds, statins, and was having joint pain, muscle pain, memory issues. We could just see her spiral downward in our Zoom calls. And that's when we said, no, you got to come live with us. And
wow, that's amazing. That's right. Yeah. So the pandemic in a way is helping people to actually learn things. I mean, people talk about their immune system quite a bit now. And
yes.
And everyone's ordering vitamin D and zinc and elderberry and all these things. And
don't forget vitamin A.
Yeah. And there's so much, and to your point, if we can change the diet to where these vitamins, these vital things that we need in our bodies, if they can come from food, mm-hmm. from real food, plants, mm-hmm. and animals, and basically we want to be eating sunshine, whatever the sun gives us on our planet, mm-hmm. and we consume that, we can be healthy. Mm-hmm. Versus having it, even in the supplement industry, we're still taking pills to try to augment and to, catch up with things that we're missing. So that's really intriguing. And then moving on in your journey, and I appreciate you sharing about your mom, because my mom's 86, and she lives pretty well and takes pretty good care of herself. And that type 2 diabetes actually forced her to learn self-care and how to behave herself, so for the most part. So that's really good.
That's the gift.
What's that?
That's the gift of the dis-ease.
Right.
Always is.
Right. Like wake up.
To do about it.
First you get knocked on the head, and then you fall down and hit your head, and then like your body is trying to get through to you a certain message that you need to start taking care of yourself. Otherwise, then you fall off the horse, and then the horse steps on you, and then you're really in trouble.
Yeah.
So thank you for sending me this book. You share a pretty intimate story about you and your daughter. Do you want to share a little bit of that? Just some, one or two lessons, what you learned through that experience?
Right. The worst things that happen to us in life are often end up being the best things because, and if we can change our mindset to, it's not happening to me, but it's happening for me. And what are we needing to learn? So my daughter at age 28, and I had done conventional medicine, and I'd actually left medicine and was onto another career. And I was about 50, thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I was just starting to study integrative nutrition when my 28-year-old daughter got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which was the same cancer that took my boyfriend when I was a nurse's aide at 19 years old, and her grandmother died in my home when I was pregnant with her younger sister of Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I was fresh out of nursing school, and I was driving her to her chemo and her radiation. And it was her grandmother's death was very emotional for me, because Hodgkin's lymphoma is one of the few cancers that conventional medicine says is really curable. Often chemo and radiation are just palliative measures. They're not curable. So my head as a trained RN said, oh, thank God it's Hodgkin's because it's curable. But my gut and my heart was saying, oh no. My experience was it didn't work for my 19-year-old boyfriend or my mother-in-law. And my daughter was 5'10" and 110 pounds living in Detroit in the winter. And my gut and my heart said, she's not going to survive chemotherapy. So if we're going to go to war with cancer, she needs some armor. So I just started listening to, and then friends were bombarding me with alternative stuff. And I couldn't even listen to the alternative, the truth about cancer. It just seemed too radical. But I did. I talked with this MD, certified nutritional specialist in Arizona, got on the phone with me for like an hour. And I told her we can go anywhere in the world. This is my daughter. Let's look at what's out there other than they wanted to use the same chemotherapy treatment from 30 years earlier. Now, we know how things have changed in the IT space, which is where I had been working, and how fast information and our lives have changed, but you're using the same chemo that didn't work. No, we're gonna have to rethink this. So I found a place where they do low dose IPT, insulin potentiation therapy. But first we did 10-day juice feast and changed the diet drastically. And so we were in Arizona for 3 months, and I'm this skeptical kind of conventional gal going, can diet really make such a difference? I'd always thought I'd eaten well. We all think we eat well. We all think we have a healthy diet. But at that point, I also had my own autoimmune disease. I've been diagnosed 20 years earlier with vitiligo, where I had depigmentation on my hands and my face and my eyes. And I'd had hypertension, I'd had high cholesterol since I was 30, very young age. Insulin resistance, I'm sure, from very young age. So anyway, 3 months there. Not only does my daughter get a clean PET scan, and she had stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was all in her, she was at risk for a heart attack and a stroke when we got the PET scan. It had spread so badly. So she got a clean PET scan, but I also changed. I lost the last 15 pounds I thought I would never lose. My eyesight improved so much that I no longer wear glasses at age 50. And I wore bifocals to contact bifocals to read and to drive for decades. And of course, everything else, of course, changed too dramatically.
So the 10-day fast and then radically changing the diet, was that a complete vegetarian diet?
With that program, it was raw vegan. And I did raw vegan for between 6 and 9 months, 6 months very religiously, 3 months there. And I had never fasted a day in my life. And I was somebody who ate a lot of food and didn't think it was even possible to just have juice and water. But we did. And I learned to actually really crave greens and green juices. And to this day, I've run some intermittent fasting kickstarts and the Kickstart to Wellness. I share the recipes and the juices and but also what we've learned in our studies is that no one diet works for everyone, nor does one diet work for everyone all the time. And so in an acute phase like cancer, raw vegan or a pegan can be very healing short term. And what's the commonality between a vegan diet and a paleo diet, or all of these terms now, is that we get rid of the junk, the sugar, the artificial flavorings, that kind of what I said in my book. There are some simple solutions, and I don't care what kind of diet you name it. When we get rid of the crap, our health is gonna improve.
Yeah, I just picked up the Perfect Health Diet. It's 2 Harvard-trained scientists who, one was an astrophysicist, one was a microbiologist, married couple. They both, by the time they were 40, they started having health problems and this and that and the other. And they finally figured out through a series of events that food might be the problem. So they
kind of fundamental.
Yeah, they went paleo, and but you're right. It's like the sugary carbs and the high glycemic type of junk food, and what's that phrase? Eat food, eat real food, mostly plants.
If it's made in a plant,
instead of food
if it comes
like
from a plant, do. If it's made in a plant, don't.
right. Food like substances, right? Substances that appear to be food, but they're really chemicalized matter of some type or another.
Right.
Yeah. So
adulterated, and we've even adulterated the staff of life. Our wheat, we've adulterated it so much, and our dairy, so that the body doesn't recognize it anymore.
I think wheat is one of the most addictive things that the chromosomes have changed. That it's all genetically modified. There's no wheat that's like the wheat from 100 years ago.
Yeah, it's actually hybridized. Yeah.
Hybridized.
Yeah.
Okay. But isn't that a genetic modification of sorts?
Well, I think we could get technical on it, but
Okay.
It's not really. And my uncle, who is a wheat farmer, will argue with you. No, it's not genetically modified.
Okay, good.
It's hybridized, and we hybridize. This has been going on for centuries. Hybridizing things. So hybridizing is not as bad as genetically modifying it, where we have put a chemical like we've Roundup into, Roundup resistant crops are very different, so that the crops can withstand the glyphosate being sprayed on them.
Right.
Because it damages the gut lining of the insects.
Right. Okay, good. Got it. That's a good distinction. So in your daughter's journey and her outcome.
So she's been deemed cured. It's been more than 6 years. It hasn't been an easy road. We left the program. She went home to her husband, woohoo, cancer free. But kind of returned to similar diet and lifestyle, and bought a condo that was an old restored warehouse of a pharmaceutical company right in Detroit. And actually, we know from building materials and renovations that it can bring up a lot of toxins. Right. And all cancer is a result of the toxicity. Toxicity is greatly involved. And her cancer did come back with a vengeance. And her oncologist said to me, with her husband in the room, had we not taken her and done this crazy thing, he could have had a 90% chance of curing her. Now she only had a 10% chance of survival if she did radiation, or a 60% chance if she did a complete bone marrow transplant.
Oh my goodness.
And of course, the physician was the head of the bone marrow transplant, brand new facility at Carmanos, a big cancer institute in Detroit. And it was like sticking a knife in my gut, that I somehow could have put my daughter at risk. And I actually believe it was just the opposite, that we might save
absolutely
life. I don't think she would have survived chemo, and even on the IPT, the low dose, we only did it for a few weeks because the side effects were so bad. He said, I think we can just do the integrative alternative stuff and the integrative stuff and put this in remission, which we were able to do. So, you know, you never know what the right decision is. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying don't do conventional medicine. I'm saying there's many, many choices and that we are all different. But my daughter said to that response, she said, well, I think I have something to say about this, which thank God she did, you know, that I'm not, she's an N of one. She's not a statistic. And we actually went and got 5-second opinions after that. And we went to the top cancer conventional institutes. We went to MD Anderson, we went to Johns Hopkins, we had Karmanos, we went to conventional oncologist in Fairfax, and then Dana's oncologist in Arizona also, who said, come back, we didn't do enough, let's keep working. And I had to say to Dana, this is your decision. You know, she's 28 years old, she's married. I had, you know, I knew what I wanted her to choose, but it's not my decision. This was her decision, it's her life, and she had to do what she felt was best for her. And she chose to stay in Detroit with her husband and go to Karmanos and do the radiation versus bone marrow transplant, which he'd given her 10% chance of survival. Now, that's a huge nocebo effect, you know, nocebo versus placebo. And I've witnessed as a nurse, people who die, like if they're told they have 3 months to live, they live 3 months. And I wrote about that in my book, documented case studies where the body follows the mind, and what we believe in is so much more important than any treatment, anything else. So to what my story doesn't tell, because this was many years ago, is right when she got her clean, like 5 years, you know, every year that PET scan, you know, that she's officially, as far as conventional medicine is concerned, cancer-free. Her then 34-year-old husband, 35, is diagnosed with kidney cancer, stage 4 kidney cancer, which the prognosis is not good. And it was his good best friend who diagnosed them, was the urologist. And he passed 101 days after diagnosis, like 3 months. And he did the chemo, the surgery, the radiation, went to Cleveland Clinic. So my daughter now is identifies as a survivor and a widow. And my goal, when I wrote my book, Eat, Think, and Thrive, is to empower people that we're not bound by our diagnosis, we're not bound by our prognosis, that the body does have the natural ability to heal from within, that we can get out of our own way. And that doing so, we can thrive. I really don't like the term survivor. Yes, we can recognize that it is through the fire that we grow and transform. This is how, and all of us, you know, as you mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, we come into this world through trauma, sometimes through the birth canal, and we have genetically maybe trauma from our parents, you know, and they say that if you've got those who have had organ transplants have some of the memories or tastes or likes of the organ that was put into it. So our memories in the DNA that are passed generation to generation, which really gets us down to a very philosophical level, which is what's our meaning and purpose here? Right. And I think it is to forgive. It's love and forgive. Forgive ourselves, and each other for the trauma. And it's a make love, not war. The war on cancer has not been successful. Creating war in the body is not. And if you look at radical remissions and spontaneous healing, it's about a lot of self-love, a lot of self-care and forgiveness and compassion.
Beautiful, beautiful. Very well said. I appreciate that. I probably for 2 or 3 years, I've been really, my intention is to have joy at the center of my heart.
Beautiful.
Like, that's the inception point of living of life, thriving as you call it. And that joy isn't something I can create on my own. It's almost I have to receive that. And how do I get that? How do I get joy in my life? Well, I better take good care of my body. I better eat right, eat well, and I better get good sleep. I better do some exercise. Those things help, but it does become spiritual in nature, and it also becomes philosophical. That, what are we putting out? What are the words coming out of our mouth? How are we affecting and influencing the people around us? Are we an uplift? Are we giving love? Are we caring? Or is it judgment? And from that point you can go downhill very quickly. But yeah, so the final goal is to live a purposeful life, right? To have a real purpose and a calling to not just be a selfish American, but to be a person that can bring life and bring health and bring joy to other people, right? That's why we smile, because when we smile, that person who receives that smile will return the smile. That does happen most of the time. So that's a very powerful story, and I appreciate you sharing those further details that weren't in the book. So let's jump ahead a little bit and just ask the question. Cancer seems to be a big part of your story, and these autoimmune diseases. And I think I've only recently put it together that an autoimmune disease is actually the immune system misbehaving and taking a toll on our bodies in some, arthritis, or, there's something happening with the immune system where signals are getting crossed and tissue and joints become the object of the inflammation. You want to speak on cancer prevention a little bit and, first steps or something like that?
Yeah. So, as we know, all autoimmune disease comes from the gut. Starts from intestinal permeability or leaky gut. We know this in functional medicine. It's and that, as you mentioned, the body becomes a collateral damage. That when we're eating gluten or dairy or food that has been adulterated, or we have stress and we have this leaky gut, the food particles can get into the bloodstream, and the body sees it as a foreign body and the immune system starts to attack that foreign body in the blood. And then other tissues may be involved as collateral damage. Okay. Gluten particularly has an affinity for the thyroid. And once we have one autoimmune disease, as I mentioned, it's more prevalent to others. And often this inflammation that's caused by our food and our stress and our diet and our lifestyle and eating too much, too many aspirin or Motrin or birth control pills or all the standard American diet can lead to this inflammation in the body. And inflammation can be seen as attention issues, memory issues, because you have leaky gut, you're going to have a leaky brain, mental health issues. Everything is interconnected, and they're all precursors to DNA oxidative damage or DNA damage. And that's really where cancer cells are then given the ability to mutate or grow. It's, a cancer cell is a cell that has lost its message to die. And that's when it can take over. So cancer prevention, it's what we learned at the School of Applied Functional Medicine. We maximize, minimize, and prioritize what your unique body needs. We maximize the right nutrition, the right diet, the right stress. We maximize feel-good hormones. The body does follow the mind when we're focused. And I think it does start with the mind. It's stress is not what happens to us. It's how we react to it. You have a woman who's finds out she's pregnant. That could be fantastic news, the best news ever, or traumatic news, so it's, and at a cellular level, the body changes biology. When we're happy, we're laughing, we're joyful, our body is working to rebuild itself. When we get good sleep, it can go after the rogue cancer cells. When we're in a period of dis-ease, the body, or we're in fight or flight all the time, the body is prioritizing you running from that saber-toothed tiger and not cleaning up rogue cancer cells and not cleaning up the viruses or the bacteria. We're more susceptible to whatever virus is going to come last year or this year or next year. So we maximize, and then we have to minimize toxicity. We live in a very toxic world. It's not how toxic, it's not if it's toxic, it's how toxic, and our genes more predisposed to helping us get rid of those toxins. We're always detoxifying, but some do it better than others. And then the third is prioritizing self-care, which is the hardest, especially I think, I always say more so for women, maybe not, maybe so, maybe not, but we have a society where we put everybody else's needs first, and we can easily become kind of martyrs. And when we're always doing at our own expense, it takes a toll. And I always say self-care is not selfish. It's the most selfless thing you can do in your life, because it's the most loving thing you can do, because when you show up in the world from a place of strength and health and well-being, like you said, the smile, it radiates, and we are not meant to be here on this earth alone. And so this social isolation is tremendously damaging. And when we're wearing masks, we don't even see the smile, right? We can't even exchange that breathing and that energy. And so, this is just creating more distrust, more fear. And I always say we can either respond out of fear or react out of faith. React out of fear, respond out of faith. We have to have faith and trust in whatever we're choosing is the best for us and the right decision for us.
Right. I appreciate that a lot. That's, I think there's this there's a few words. So balance is one, right? So the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic, parasympathetic. So we need that sympathetic mode. We need that idea that we have to be able to respond to stress when it comes, because it will come. Mm-hmm. And then we got to be able to relax and calm down and keep a level head when that saber-toothed tiger is just an illusion. It doesn't really exist. Okay, we're carrying the stress from a month ago or a year ago or 10 years ago, and we're letting that stress still live with us. Mm-hmm. That's very self-defeating, versus that whole letting go notion of, I care for myself enough that I'm not going to poison myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so the body affects the mind. The mind certainly, as you pointed out, very strongly affects the body. But it is a two-way street. There are signals going from the gut to the brain's signaling the gut. And anywhere along that continuum, we can get ourselves into trouble if we allow that. And I think part of your gift to the world is to be able to help people see that and to coach people through those difficult times. You've been through a lot yourself, and been there and done that. And now you have resources and stories and recommendations and guidance for people to help them to find out what's right for them as they do. I don't want to say do battle, but as they meet the challenges and overcome.
Yeah. I'm a huge advocate of helping people with a personalized prevention plan. If you have a history of cancer, or you're concerned about cancer, or have it in your family, I mean, who doesn't know anyone with cancer? That you, number one, you do certain functional medicine testing that's not offered at your annual physical. That they, you come and you replete nutritional insufficiencies. That there's so much we can do now to make sure that we they don't get it, or that we can catch it even earlier if possible. And this is and the body does follow the mind. I give everybody this handout: maximize, minimize, prioritize. And from my book, I go in great details. The symptoms of being in sympathetic overdrive versus the parasympathetic, the fight or flight versus rest and digest, rest and repair, or mate and ovulate. There's a reason that people can't get pregnant and that the body naturally is protecting ourselves if we're not ready to carry a full-term baby or get pregnant, if we're stuck in fight or flight all the time. So I've helped a number of couples overcome that, and love to see people 6 months to 2 years before you want to have a baby, to make sure that you've got the strongest sperm and the best eggs, that we can actually change our genetics of not only our children but our grandchildren by getting the right nutrition in the body. And so getting the right armor if you've got cancer, or way before, even before conceiving childbirth, the right nutrition and balance in the body.
So looking to the future, I know that cancer prevention is something that's very big, that you want to promote and to signal out to the world. What plans do you have? What are you looking at?
So I've been doing this for a decade now, and in my private practice, and it's a big investment in time and money to do coaching and a personalized prevention plan that's not accessible to everyone. And I was fortunate enough with my daughter's cancer to have stock and retirement that I could sell to pay for her integrative program, because she had an HMO, and going outside of that HMO, 0% was paid for.
Right.
And even though it was a lot less money spent for her to achieve remission from what conventional medicine was, it was 100% out of my pocket. The statistics are, if you have a cancer diagnosis, it's about $250,000 starting to do the chemo, the radiation, and that insurance pays for. We paid about $70,000, which was a huge amount of money. And people don't have money for. Not everybody has the means to invest, or believes they have the means to invest in diet and supplements and coaching to help them through this. So I'm seriously considering starting a nonprofit to help raise money for those who want to choose integrative care. I'm very passionate that we are losing freedom of choice on our healthcare dollar. We haven't for a long time. We spend a lot of money. You have to pay for healthcare that I never use. And all of my healthcare has been, my real healthcare, wellness care, is not paid for insurance for prevention. And yet we'll pay so much money very late in the game. And it's not sustainable for ourselves as a country as much as for the individuals. And I don't think you should have to go into bankruptcy to get healthy.
That is wonderfully stated and said. And I'm starting to get a little dry throat, so I'm going to take a sip of water.
I'll do the same.
Okay, so where can people find you?
Oh, www. Carpe Diem Wellness. It means seize the day. CARP as in Paul, E as in Edward, D as in dog, IEM as in Mary, wellness.org, not .com, .org. Because from the day I started my business, I thought this probably should be a nonprofit.
Good.
And I do have a handout that if people are interested in, a couple of things that I did. Cancer prevention and anti-aging strategies, because it's all the same.
Oh, good.
And prevention. And I go through step by step, and really 12 steps in the back that everybody can do. Simple solutions and prevention strategies that we kind of spoke a little bit about, but enlisting the 5 R's of functional medicine, addressing insulin resistance, oxygenating the body, a lot of more information and tips. I'm happy to.
I'm going to have the editors, we'll put the website up on the video, and then any of those documents that can be downloaded, we'll put that with the show notes and link to your website. There's a contact button on there. And was there anything else you'd like to close out with? I have to say that it's just so important for the one takeaway, I think, for me personally, let me give you my takeaway, is that being on the road to health means being on the road to self-love, self-care, and not in that way of being selfish or being arrogant, but in the way of bringing a different mentality to life that then can be extended out and shared with other people, so that we're not living alone and sheltered and, isolated, but that we're a community, we're families, we have a lot of pods that we belong to, concentric circles. And, I think the idea is that we want to be a blessing and be a benefit to others. And I know you are. So I hope this touches somebody and helps resonate with people that there's more to life than just worrying about your health or worrying about finances or worrying about, like you said something so beautiful about your daughters, that it had to be her decision. Mm-hmm. And I look at my kids and I cannot live my life through them. That's not going to happen. They are their own individual beings. And they're learning stuff, and some of it's really, really good, and some of it are detours they have to get back on the track, in my opinion. But nonetheless, it's a beautiful world and it's a beautiful life if we choose it to be so. So I really appreciate it, Lisa, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been my pleasure.
Congratulations on your journey to optimal health. Over here, we have the Knowledge Library where you are welcome to dive in and keep learning.